Hello and welcome to Missio Talk. I'm Mark Chamberlain, and this is a forum to discuss issues of mission and ministry in the Christchurch Diocese. Its purpose is to resource clergy and parishes and to help us all to develop and strengthen the ways we participate in God's mission to the world. Today my guest is Edwin Boyce. Welcome, Edwin.
Thank you.
And our topic has to do with bequests. In other words, funding mission. So my first question, Edwin, is, well, tell us about a request. What is a bequest exactly?
Basically, a bequest is a gift given by someone through their will to someone else, whether it be a person or whether it be an organisation like the church. And a bequest can take on any different form. It can be a sum of money, a small sum of money or a large sum of money, or it could be a piece of property like a house or a piece of land, or we've had recently someone bequeath a car to a church.
Mm. Okay, so it's a wide-ranging kind of form of gift.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Why would a person make a bequest?
Right, so the answer to that question lies in that word why. Because when I go out to parishes and I meet with the vestries or the congregation, I hear about all the things that are going on, all the wonderful things that are going on in our ministry units. You know, things like mainly music or walking groups or whatever it may be. And then you ask the question, well, why are you doing this? And when you think about it, Jesus gave us the command to go out into the world and make disciples of people. Mm-hmm. And that's really why we were here. And all those things that we do are really the why of why we are here. But unfortunately, that why, that want to get that commandment out there and make disciples requires resources. And by making a bequest, you're actually contributing to that resource and helping the parishes or the ministry units go about their work making disciples. Now, one person, some people look at a bequest in this way and saying that, you know, it's like planting a seed for a tree under which you will not sit. But I have a better phrase for that. And if I could just quote from it here, but just so I don't misquote the young woman that wrote this, she said, "I don't want to have lived in vain like most people. I want to be useful, to bring enjoyment to all people, even those I've never met. I want to go on living after my death." Now, the young woman who said that was Anne Frank. And what a bequest she brought to the world.
Wow.
And what enjoyment could anybody bring to the world if you're making someone a disciple of Christ? And that's what your bequest will be doing.
Okay. So it's a direct contribution to the growth of the kingdom in that period after you've passed away.
Yes. Yeah.
What are the different types of bequests? Is there sort of different ways of doing this?
There is. Basically, there's three that I would like to speak about here today. There is the conditional bequest, there's the unconditional bequest, and then there's the one they call the living bequest. Now, the conditional bequest means that you give something with a condition attached to it. That has its problems, though, because just imagine you give a bequest so that the organ can be maintained. Now, we all know that over time organs need to be maintained, but we do get to the point where maybe the organ's not needed anymore, but the bequest is still tied to that organ, and that makes it difficult to use that money any other way.
Right.
The other type of conditional bequest is where you say, I'm going to give you a capital sum of money, and you can not use the capital, but you can use the interest. Now, again, over time, that capital value reduces, and the interest earned from it becomes smaller and smaller. It's no use to you, and the capital is actually tied up. So imagine back in the 60s, someone had given, say, $1,000. Back in the 60s, $1,000 was a lot of money, and it probably earned a lot of money, and it was all useful. But $1,000 today, just as a capital sum, earning point something odd of a percent isn't going to bring much in. So it's tied that money up, and it can't be used well. So really, the best bequest you can make is an unconditional one. So there's no ties to it, and you leave it to be used whatever way the parish wants to use it. And then the other one I mentioned there was the living bequest. And the living bequest is really saying, I actually want to see what my money is going to do while I'm still alive. Now, we use this particular type of bequest at St. Peter's at Upper Riccarton when we wanted to restore the building. And some people gave lump sums of money that probably might have given when they passed away, but they were giving it there and then to actually see the church come about. Much better you see the church working now than when you're seeing it when you're dead. You're never going to see it when you're dead. So it's important to do those sorts of things. Yeah.
Okay, so there are different types, unconditional, conditional, and living.
A living bequest, which is really a donation if you think about it.
Yeah, I guess it is.
Yeah.
But what I'm hearing you saying is that the unconditional bequest is kind of like the best kind.
Absolutely the best one you
those
can
at the time can decide the best way in which that can be used.
Indeed. Yeah.
Okay. Almost the final question. If I wanted to make a bequest to a parish, how would I go about doing that?
Okay. If you were going to make a will or make a change, alteration to your will, you can actually put a clause into it to say that you're going to give a certain amount of money or even a proportion of your estate to the church. And in our diocesan handbook on page A17, there is actually a format for actually putting into your will. And basically it's saying, I'm giving this to this parish so that these people, and it might be the vicar and the wardens, or it might be the vicar and the vestry, can best decide how to use that money. So it's really good to say how much it's going to be, or what proportion it might be of your estate, who you're giving it to, and who has authority over it. So it's quite clear where the money's going and who can use the money and how it can be used.
Okay, so those resources there, and I'm sure you'd be open to someone ringing up or emailing about that information as well.
Absolutely, and I'm only too willing to go out to any parish, speak to the vestry, speak to the congregation about setting up a bequest program. One of the things you can do in a bequest program is actually create a bequest community, a group of people who get together regularly just to talk about what they're going to do with bequests. And this is one of the major ways to keep that whole idea of bequests going.
Okay, say you're in a parish as a vicar and vestry, there is some sensitivity around pushing bequests too hard. Can you give us a steer on the best approach to take when you're asking your parishioners to consider making a bequest to the church? You can see where the sensitivity might come.
Yes, yeah. So what we already have available are little pamphlets that we can hand out.
Okay.
So that's the opening, and then get people to say, well, I am interested in finding out a bit more. So it's a bit like, you know, casting out and dragging people in or drawing people in to the whole discussion about bequests.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you begin to open up the topic with information and invite people to find out a little bit more. But I think the other important thing to note is that it really is about the mission of the diocese, the church in our communities, our various communities. And it's about the importance of kind of funding that for subsequent generations.
It is.
And we've all enjoyed buildings and finances that have been given to us from previous generations. So in a sense, it's only fair that we somehow contribute to the funding of the next generation.
Absolutely. And we go back to what I was saying earlier about the commandment that Jesus gave us.
Yep.
That's passed down from generation to generation.
Yeah.
It's our responsibility to make sure that that commandment is passed to the next generation with the resources to actually do that work.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it does require resources, it does require money. It's not easy these days.
No.
And if we wish to see the Christian church continue, then we've got to contribute to that future for them.
Yeah. And I do notice that many other agencies within the community do offer bequest programs. These are a charitable organisation. So this is not an uncommon thing. It's kind of become more normalised within the community.
Absolutely. Organisations like the Salvation Army and so on, they get millions. I think the figure I heard recently was around about $20 million the Salvation Army gets a year from its bequest program alone. And some other charities like CWS, Christian World Service, they depend very much on getting bequests given through them every year. But our churches generally, you know, every so often we do hear about a bequest being given, and sometimes it's quite a surprise that it was coming. They knew nothing about it, and it's been a blessing.
So the fundamental question is, how important do we really believe it is to see the church continue to flourish and offer ministry and education for young people and all the good things that churches do in our community. How important is that for us to sustain into the future?
It is absolutely
Yeah.
important.
Yeah.
If we do not sustain what we've got now,
Yeah.
what will it look like in the
Yeah.
future? If
Yeah.
we don't fund that, if we don't help it to grow,
Yeah.
keeping in mind that the idea behind it, again, we come back to that commandment of making disciples. We will
Yes.
bring people in,
Yes.
and bringing those people in will be self-sustaining
Yeah.
of the church in itself.
Absolutely. So thank you so much for your wisdom, Edwin, about bequest and how we can use bequest to continue to fund the mission of the church.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.